Hello, darlings. How exciting. We are at week 5. Can you believe it? How quick do the weeks go? Especially when you're diving into something so exciting with so many layers and so many possibilities and so many infinite discoveries. It zooms by, right? So we've looked at the fundamentals, right? So the fundamentals I've said what are? The 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. Because astrology is easy when you understand the language and you understand the foundation of astrology. Ultimately, astrology is these 3 things: signs, planets, houses. That's what it is. That is what makes up all of astrology. And then you can go on different journeys and different routes. You know, we've talked about some people diving into the mythology, which I love parts of the mythology. And, you know, I'm a bit of a collector of all of it, to be honest. I love it all. But, you know, some people do medical astrology and some people do predictive stuff, and some people, you know, just want to know their own charts, right? And that's the basis of astrology. You know, all these people reading for other people or posting stuff about astrology don't even know their own charts. You know, this is the core, this is the foundation. So this is the final piece this week, week 5. Week 5 is the houses. It's not the final piece, because next week we will start to put everything together. We'll look at the ascendant and we'll look at the angles, and we'll do sort of a putting everything together, right? But today we talk about the houses and the natural chart, okay? The natural chart. So I want to just share this little bit with you. So the sign is the how, yeah? So the sign is how the planet is being expressed. The planet is the what. So the what, the type of energy. So we've looked at planets, so that's the what. So it's Mars, so it's action, or it's Venus and it's finances and love, and Pluto, it's, you know, revealing secrets, or you know, rebirth, death. So that's the what. The planet is the what. What's happening, what's unfolding, yeah? The sign is the how it's doing it, because if we've got planets in different signs, they're going to express the planet in a very different way, right? So of course, Venus in the sign of Taurus expresses her love with love because she's at home there. But Venus in Aquarius expresses her love maybe in a little more cold and detached way, maybe just friendly, not so, you know, I want to be all smushed up like the Taurus, right? So that's what we look at. So we're looking at the planet is the how, and the planet is the what, and the sign is the how. So the planet is the what is playing out, the type of energy being expressed. Of course, if it's Jupiter, of course, the type of energy that is, what is it? It's expansive and abundant. And this is why this 1 plus 1 plus 1 analogy for me is the key here, because once you understand signs, once you understand planets, and then once you know where to put them, all of a sudden everything starts to come together really magically. Yeah, like if magic, yay. So how are we? We are. The planet is the what, the sign is the how, and the house is the where. So the house is where all of this is playing out, where it's being expressed, where it's being discovered, where it's being uncovered, where it's unfolding, where it's happening in your life. That is why we can look to the chart and go, right, this person has some heavy relationship karma. Why? Because they have lots of planets in the relationship house. So we're looking to the houses now, okay? And we're starting with what's called the natural chart. So we are going to add the other deeper layer next week in our final week, where we are looking at the ascendant, and we're going to talk about the ascendant really in depth, the 4 angles, and I'm going to go really deep into that. But for now, we're just going to talk about the houses, purely straight, like having a nip of, what do they call it? Like when someone has like just a nip of straight alcohol, they just go, oh, there's that word, you know, that word that they say? Neat. I will have tequila neat, whatever, you know, I'm not having tequila neat, maybe. I like a margarita, but you know. So the thing is that this is the chart neat, okay? This is not adding your ascendant, because your ascendant is your time of birth, which that's where we get the infusedness of you, okay? So we're going to really dive into that next week. So for now, you just need to understand the basics of each of the houses. So today we're going to chat about that. in your handout, you will have the little thing here. And what I've done in there is I've written the elements. I've gone around and written the elements in the houses, okay, because this is where we're going to understand the element houses. So, and you've also got, I've written it all here, the natural chart rulers. So first house, Aries, fire. Second house, Taurus, earth. Third house, Gemini, air. Fourth house, Cancer, water. Fifth house, Leo, fire. Sixth house, Virgo, earth. Seventh house, Libra, air. Eighth house, Scorpio, water. Ninth house, Sag, fire. 10th house, Capricorn, earth. 11th house, Aquarius and air. And 12th house, Pisces and water. Yeah. So then you go, oh, so the 3 water houses are 4, 8, and 12. I've got no water in my chart, but I have lots of planets in those houses. So that actually balances it out. Okay. This is where I was talking earlier in the course that we get to this point where we start to see that that can balance it out. For some people, they might have no water and not one planet in those houses at all. Okay, and of course, I just need to be really clear here. There are other things that we look at in the chart, like the house rulers and stuff like that, but I'm not going into that in this course because we need to have the very ground level. We need to know off the top of our head what Mars in the 5th house means in Leo. And that is where I want you to get to. That's like my biggest goal, is that you know your chart, your partner's chart, your children's chart. Look, off the top of your head, you know that your daughter's moon's in Virgo in the 4th house. Like, you just know that. Like, that's where it is. And you know that it's, you know, if she's got an earth moon and you've got an earth moon, you know that there's a very harmonious relationship because they're both earth. Yeah? So this is where I want you to get, because yes, there are so many other things. You know, I could teach this forever, and I want to create an enormous astrology school, all under the banner of Tiani, but all under the banner of my biggest passion in the world, which is astrology and knowing thyself through your chart, knowing thyself through astrology. So for now, so you understand, sorry, I just need some water here. So I think it's a good idea to go into the empty pie pieces, which are the houses, and write fire, earth, air, water, FEAW. So you know that they're the element houses. Then you can, you know, I've given a blank chart. I encourage you to write down each of the things that you learn about the houses today. Obviously, you've got notes, but then you've got space for more notes because I talk a lot and share lots of juicy information. And write down your own keywords. I have actually given you, and these are all from the internet. I haven't done them up myself. I will not take credit. Well, I would never take credit where it's not due anyway. But these are all from the internet, so they're just the little handouts, again, giving you that information, because it's really important to go, oh, the second house rules in this one, it just says money and values. And then on the other one, it says money, possessions, values, and skills. And then on the other one, it says money, sense of values, earned income, and possessions, right? So we get the feel of the second house. You know, I'm going to talk about all the houses, but this is what we want to do. We just want to get that feel. We want to understand. So who rules the second house? Taurus. So we're going to start to see this symbology, the archetypes, because we can't just say to someone, you're a Taurus. No, I'm not a Taurus. I'm an archetype of a Taurus. They are the qualities that I express most heavily because I have 4 planets in Taurus. I have my Mars in Taurus. I have Chiron in Taurus. I include Chiron, as you all know. I'm addicted to Chiron, and he is in MOD1 because he needed a couple of weeks to himself. So he has got 2 weeks to himself in Module 2. I have my Sun in Taurus, and I have Venus in Taurus. So I have four bodies in Taurus. So am I a Taurus? No, but I am the archetype of that expression, right? you have Taurus in your chart. You all have a second house. You might have nothing in Taurus, but 4 planets in the second house. And that's all we're looking at here. We're not looking at, because that's where we get into next week, is where your ascendant might be not Aries, it might be Libra, like mine. So that means that my second house is ruled by Scorpio in my chart, my individual chart, but the second house always represents Taurus. Okay, so this is why it's called the natural chart. Now, the only people whose chart stays like a natural chart is someone with an Aries ascendant. Okay, that is the only people. Everyone else, the houses are ruled in our own charts by different signs, but that doesn't denote the chart in its natural state. The second house always is ruled by Taurus, even if yours is in Scorpio, even if it's in Sag, and we're going to talk more about that next week. But I just want that to be clear. So for this week, don't let the mind get you complicated. Don't let the mind try and analyze too much. We're going to look to the planets that are in the house, because that's the most important thing at this point, because the planets are what is being expressed. The sign then becomes the how, but the house is the where. Okay, so you're looking at, if you have Jupiter in the second house, so Jupiter is the planet of abundance. So just we're looking at that. So that means that there is an abundance of maybe money. So often people with Jupiter in the second house don't really have money problems unless there's some harder things going on. Okay, we've got to remember that the chart is a whole diagram. It's not just Jupiter in the second house, because that Jupiter in the second house could be sort of not having a nice time talking to some of those other planets, which means that it is harder. But when we're just getting to understand everything, we just need to see it simply. And that is my key. Is, to me, everything just needs to be simple. I strip it back. I've shared this with you guys numerous times. I go into these astrology groups and everyone's being fancy and everyone's being fandangled, and I'll strip it right back to something really, really amateur, really raw. And people forget that because they're so caught up in the stuff that's all up here. Oh, but the quincunx and the this and the inconjunct and the blah, blah. It's like, yeah, all that stuff matters. And yeah, but if you don't have a solid knowing that the second house actually means this and that's what Jupiter and Jupiter there means this, well, you're getting a little bit lost. You're getting too far ahead of yourself. And I know that that's my repetitive stuff. I think I was watching, might have been the Leo King or another astrologer this week, and they said, I know I always repeat myself, and I'm like, damn, I say that shit all the time. But it's because we're trying to really infiltrate truth and stability around astrology, because there is so much misinformation out there, so much misinformation. So as an astrologer, we are trying to give people the real true understandings of that. And of course, everyone feels astrology different and so on and so forth. Let me now keep talking about houses. Yes, so ultimately what you're doing this week is looking at the planets in the houses, because you know the planet now. You know planets, you know signs, and you're getting to know them. Yeah, they might not be as fluent as they will be eventually. You are learning a new language, and that's how you have to see this. You are learning a new language, and my oath, you're doing amazing, yeah? So you've got your natural chart rulers there. So you can always come back to that if you have a little mind blimp. You can always come back to that. Again, I think it's nice just to know what houses are in each element. Sometimes the visual is better than sort of going, oh, first house fire and reading it like that. Everyone learns differently. So let's get stuck into the houses. First house is Aries. So the energy of the first house is always Aries. It's always fire. It's always cardinal. Okay? So that is always, without a doubt, this is the natural chart. This is what I want you to develop a very beautiful relationship with, so you understand this immensely. Yeah. So some of the keywords I've got written down here are self-awareness, ego, physical appearance, how you are seen, how you interact with the world, your mannerisms, your self-image, your outward attitude, how you present yourself to the world. This is how you are. This is the first port of call. This is what people see is your first house. So if someone has, for example, me, I have Pluto in my first house. What is that going to mean? Intense, passionate, You know, I've always felt like I'm constantly like rebirthing and shedding my skin. Why would that be? Because Pluto represents rebirth and transformation, and it's in my first house, my house of self. So for me, Pluto is an intense player in my life. Now, I've spoke that, you know, there are people who are said that are very heavily Plutonian people, okay, and usually that comes down to Pluto talking to lots of planets in the chart. And now the lines in your circle, in your mandala, your beautiful birth mandala, are the planets talking to each other. Now, if Pluto's got lots of them, well, that could be very Plutonian, because it means that he's talking to that planet and that planet and that planet and that planet. It might not always be a great conversation, but he's talking to them. Whereas for me, I actually don't have Pluto doing a lot with my other planets. But I'm Plutonian because A, he's in my first house. Pluto in the first house is power, because the first house is self. It is what people see from me. And I can't even tell you the amount of times that people have said to me after getting to know me that they felt like I was intimidating. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't see myself like that, because I'm very gentle and I'm very embracing, and I just get shit, right? I'm awake. I'm an awake person. But to someone who doesn't know themselves, to someone who, um, yeah, maybe doesn't feel very powerful or very empowered in their life, I don't believe in being intimidated, because I'm not intimidated by anyone. And that probably has a lot to do with Pluto in my first house. I know who I am, so and I know my chart. So there is nothing for me to be intimidated about with anyone ever. You know, empowered women empower women. I just don't have that within me. It's not in my like energy. I just don't. I I can hand on my heart, just it's just not something I experience. But I understand that other people can experience being intimidated by other people, but it's more so people that don't know who they are. It's more so people that aren't solid in who they are in themselves. But of course, you know, I've got Pluto in the first house, so this is going to be easy for me. Someone might not have anything in the first house, and that's okay. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you don't have anything in the houses. We'll talk about empty houses next week. But the thing is that is the example of Pluto in the first house. I've had people go, oh, you know, at first I was intimidated by you because of your power, because you're so strong. And I think, well, it's just because I know who I am. But Pluto is the biggest, like, he is a huge freaking planet to have in your first house. The first house is what people see. That's how I look. So someone with Uranus in the first house, these sorts of people, they're eclectic and strange and eccentric. I love them. Like my sister-in-law has Uranus in the first house. She's constantly changing her hair, because they're changing their appearance a lot, because the first house is what? Appearance. I wear a shit ton of black. Pluto in the first house. I mean, I love myself in bold colors, and I really quite like white on me as well, because it feels really purifying for my energy. But I just wear a lot of black. It's just what I do, but does it make sense? I've got Pluto in my first house. Yeah. And then I've got 4 planets in my 8th house, and the 8th house is ruled by, take a look, Scorpio. And who is the planet of Scorpio? Pluto. That is why I'm heavy Plutonian. I don't need Pluto to be talking to too friggin' much of my chart, to be honest. Thank fuck he's not, because that's enough. Pluto in the first house and lots of planets in the 8th house, that's a heavily Plutonian person. I get that I'm an intense person. I am not an average, nothing wrong with vanilla, nothing wrong with easy at all, because hello, chart tells you it is who you are. It is what you've incarnated as. I am an intense person. I mean, the best quote for me is people like the idea of me, and then they get to know me and they're like, shh, this chick's fucking like this all the time. Like she ain't fucking around. Like she's not just like playing in astrology. She fucking is Pluto. And I am Chiron. Chiron's on my sun. But the thing is that I think people like the idea of me, but then when they go, oh, she doesn't like playing stories and gossip and want to talk superficial stuff. She wants to stab herself in the leg, being a school mother. I don't be a school mother. I drive and I drop off and pick up. I can't do small talk. Plutonians cannot do small talk. It is impossible. It is hard, because I don't care about superficial shit. I care about like what's underneath all of that. Like, who really are you? So so being a friend of mine is can be challenging. And I totally get that. I accept that about myself because I can't be in friendships that are just normal and vanilla and fucking like I can't. And me and my husband, we have some stuff in our combined wedding chart, and we can find it challenging to have couple friends because we're really deep and we are really like we own our stuff and you know, we've been friends with other couples and they just don't like, they just accept a lot of shit that we never would from ourselves nor from each other. So, and we don't want to talk about run of the mill sort of stuff. And not that we won't, of course we will. I'm still a tolerant, accepting person. It's just that I have Pluto in my first house, you know, so I think the strength can come out, you know, I can feel Plutonian, but not only can I do, and I know that. So I know that's about me. So you get to learn all this shit about me, all the ins and outs. Everyone does. Everyone knows them about me. But, you know, this is why, and this is what I love about astrology is then you understand a little bit more because you know, you're getting the full picture then. You're like, oh, you know, I know I've had clients say that they've been intimidated by me, but then they've done everything with me once they get past their own stuff and come deeper with me, they're like, oh, awesome, I can rule the world. You know, that's what I want to help people with. I want you to be able to know that you are the master of your own world. You master yourself, you master the universe. Like that is the key. Yeah. So your first house is your outlook on life. It's your personality projected. It's how you interact with your environment. Yeah. It's the way you respond to external stimuli. It's the way you approach your external world. So of course, someone with Mars in their first house, they might be a little bit more aggressive, but then we've got to look at the sign it's in. Okay, which is going into that whole ascendant stuff, but we've got to talk about it. So, but the sign is going to show the how. I keep always going, yes, I'm going. The how, the what, and the where is easy. That's always the house. But the how and the what, I'm always just like, the planet is the what and the sign is the how. Yeah. But at the end of the day, the first house is ruled by Aries. So it is a fire house. Yeah. So if you have Mars in your first house, you might be very direct. You might be blunt. You might be someone who likes to fight. Okay. It's just you. It's just in you. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just how you then channel that energy. And that's the biggest thing about understanding your chart. There is, again, like I've said, no good or bad, right or wrong. It's you activating these things. And if you are someone who is aggressive or gets into fights all the time, you know, you're just a naturally combative person, you might have Mars in your first house. And then the awareness around that can be, oh, okay, so I see that that's how I am projecting myself onto others and how I am approaching the external world because the first house is me. The first house is this. The first house can also show how you came into the world, so your birth, and planets. We'll talk about this next week too. I'm thinking I nearly could have put all of it in 1 week, but I don't think I can. I think that we need to have the understanding of the natural chart and the natural houses. That's the best place to start. Yes, so the planets in the first house can show. So, for example, my middle daughter has Neptune in her first house, and she had there was no favorite births, but her birth was amazing. Like it was, you know, mine and Joel's first child together. We had recently gone and seen Diva and Mitten, Pramal, you know, the chanting beautiful, beautiful souls. I met Mitten. He gave me a CD for my unborn child because I was pregnant with Indy at the time. We had a Laboya birth. We chanted. We held each other. It was quiet, dim lights. So what was it? It was a very spiritual birth. That's how it was. Like for 4 hours, I was induced with her, but for 4 hours, I was induced with all my girls because I go to like 42 to 43 weeks because my body's like an incubator. It's a love machine. They just love being inside of me. But the thing is that once I was in labour with Indy, it was 4 hours of magic. Yes, the surges. Yes, there was pain because that's birth, but it was magical. Like explaining the birth to people and talking about my birth story, I literally bawled for 2 weeks. just sharing how amazing it was. Like, I didn't think I could love my husband anymore, and he was just incredible in Indy's birth. And that's Neptune in the first house. However, Neptune in the first house can also be drugs, okay, because Neptune is drugs. So, you know, it can't just be one thing. Like for us and for Indy, it actually wasn't drugs. It was actually very spiritual, very, you know, we chanted for 4 hours is pretty much what we did. We had Diva and Mitten playing the whole time, and we just chanted, and it was incredible. So you see, the first house can show how you were born. It can even show how you were received, you know, like Pluto in the first house for me can show intensity. And, you know, I remember the 12th house is also just before birth as well. So there's that can happen as well. Like we can show that what's going on in the 12th house can also be just before you're born as well. But I remember talking to my dad, and, you know, he wanted a son, and I was obviously a girl. My parents were only 18 when they had me, and, you know, weren't in a great relationship. And I think the thing with Pluto is there's like, you know, regret. It's sort of like, oh, this isn't what I want. So, you know, I don't think I was received very well. Yeah, it's really fascinating. So it's really interesting that it definitely can show your birth, show any trauma, and the way you were brought into the world. So that's a good thing. The first house is also how you assert yourself and how you manifest. It is your behaviors, your approach, and your attitude. So it's you. It's you and it's all your physical stuff too. It's the way you look. That's why Uranus in the first house, they change their looks. Like my sister-in-law can have, all of a sudden she's got like a short black bob with a fringe, and her hair grows like crazy. And then, and 2 months later, now it's blonde and it's long, no fringe. Okay, how did she do that? Like, my hair looks the same for years. What the, I mean, I might change the color a little bit, but holy shit. Like, so Uranus is quite changeable. They're eclectic, you know, they look different. You know, a Martian person might like be intense in a different way to Pluto. But again, it's a malefic, isn't it? Pluto and Mars are both malefic planets. Yes, I can't go into every planet in every house because we would be here for about 60 million years. This is the whole reason you learn about the planets, is so that you can understand the planet, and then you put it into so you understand, what is that planet, Pluto, and where is it playing out in my first house. Yeah. Second house, Taurus, Earth, fixed. So you might have no Earth planets, but you've got 3 planets in this house. Okay, you've got 3 planets in this Taurus house. So some of the keywords here are possessions, material security. This is about feeling solid, feeling secure, feeling financially secure. Yeah. How are your possessions? This is all what the second house is about. Feeling secure because you've got, you know, those necessities. That's what Taurus is, right? Taurus is about those bare necessities. You need food and water, I will give you food and water. Yeah, you need a meal cooked for you, I will cook a meal for you. Yeah, we show up and we, you know, do what's necessary. Finances, how you make money, your values, your life values, because that's also what the second house is. So second house is, yes, money, finances, possessions, material wealth, material value, but it's also your own sense of inner value, your own sense of worth. How much do you think you deserve? So obviously with a planet like Saturn in the second house, that they may feel restricted or limited in what they feel like they deserve, financially speaking. Yeah. Whereas obviously I spoke earlier about Jupiter being in the second house. There's abundance there. Yeah, there is abundance. They have abundance. Life values, self-nourishment. How do you nourish yourself? How you spend and your personal resources. The second house is personal resources. What you pull on to create. What you pull on to manifest. Yeah. How self-supporting you are. So, you know, what nourishes you, what you value in yourself, and then what you offer to others. So there's a really interesting, quirky, because the second house is also food. And eating and what, you know, because it's what nourishes you. It's not just, you know, it's core values, self-worth, you know, those sorts of things, your inner core values. But it's also food. Taurus is food. Taurus is harvest. Taurus is farms, right? So farming, land. So what grows on land? Food, right? So Interestingly enough, I have Uranus in my second house. So the second house is also how, like I said, how you can spend money, how you can earn money, how you manage money, and your earning power. And to have Uranus in the second house means that I earn money in a different way. Well, what's Uranus? The planet of astrology. I am earning money through astrology. See how you just cannot make this shit up? And I was born with this. I was born with the planet of Uranus in the second house, how you earn money. And because Uranus is eclectic and different, that means that I also value different things. So that is why I do feel like an island in society, because my value system is so different to pretty much everyone I know, and especially society. I just don't value things that normal people value. I just don't have any value in them. I value completely opposite things. Really funnily enough, I read somewhere ages ago, or one of my astrology friends told me or something. It was quite funny. I can't remember where it was, but it was hilarious, that I like to eat alone. And I do. It's really weird. Because, see, you're getting a big insight into me, is because Uranus is eclectic and strange. It's strange. Uranus is strange. And it's in this house of Taurus. For me, it's in this house of Taurus, right? Taurus is food and it's self-nourishment. And I just like eating alone. It's just something I like to do. I eat with my family every day, but I like to eat alone. Like, it's not something that's something I value. I value eating alone, eating a bag of popcorn by myself. That's what I like to do. So, it's quirky. The second house will show you, your own value systems, what you value. And you might have Venus there. So what's that going to show? It's going to show that you value beauty, and that you do hold a lot of value in money. Okay, because money is everything, but also Venus in the second house would be very generous as well. But, also the value in art and making money through art. Someone with Venus maybe in the first or even second house, even third house, they can make money through the beauty industry and things like that, because what's Venus? She's beauty. Yeah, she's beauty. She's all about appearance, right? So the second house is your sense of security. It is your sense of security. It is also your gathering abilities, how good you are at your ability to gather possessions. Obviously, with Uranus in the second house, because it's a money house, that means that money, it can be like this. I make money from an unusual way, which is Uranus. Like, that's the unusuality about it. That's not even a word, but, it could be. So that's how I make money, is in an unusual way. But then money fluctuates, because Uranus is a fluctuating. All of a sudden there's this, and all of a sudden that's taken away from you. All of a sudden it's abundance, and then all of a sudden it's lack. Whereas obviously if you're looking at, I think my eldest daughter has Pluto in the second. No, it's Chiron in the second, Pluto in the third. But there can be wounds around money. So if you've got Pluto in the second house, it could be a fear of poverty. And that goes for Saturn as well, like that money will be taken off you. So it comes down to worth as well, sort of redefining your worth and what makes you worthy. This silly thing keeps popping up on my computer. What makes you feel secure? That is your second house. So planets in the second house will show you the how, the what is making you secure. So Saturn is, wanting a strong foundation, but then also maybe feeling restricted and limited. And like there's a fear around money even, yeah? Neptune in the second house, that's more, well, what's Neptune? It's elusive, so maybe people with Neptune in the second house, they spend money on spiritual things, because it's also how we spend money. Or maybe they spend it on drugs. So they're spending money on like developing themselves spiritually, or they have, usually from the charts I've done with Neptune in the second, there's this real interesting relationship with money, because they love it or they hate it, because it confines them to like feel like they're in a prison because they can't do anything, or then they're just sort of like la la la, like whatever, it's one or the other. Okay, let's keep going because I've got 12 houses to get through and getting on with time. Third house, it's Gemini, it's air. And so what you're noticing here, what we're starting to put together is the houses, the sign of the house, there's the correlation, right? And then the planet that rules that sign, the correlation. So obviously the second house is Taurus and Libra ruled. Well, it's Venus ruled, and the seventh house is Libra ruled. So reverse that. The second house is Taurus and Venus, and the seventh house is Libra Venus. Yeah. So you're seeing the planet that rules the sign, you're seeing the sign, and you're seeing how it all comes together. So of course you could say, oh, the 10th house rules Capricorn. Straight away, you know what Capricorn represents, right? Oh, Saturn, success. See, it all just starts to, come together. So of course the third house is the third sign, Gemini, air, mutable. Now, Gemini, the third house is all about communications, mental stimulation, social networking, short journeys. So I can often see people, depending on what's in their third house, that maybe they're a travel agent because they're helping people travel, or there's someone like a courier or a taxi driver or a postman, because what are they doing all the time? Short travels. And that's what the third house is, because then you're going to start going, oh, and what's the opposite house of that? Oh, what's the opposite of the first house? The seventh house. So if the first house is self, what would the seventh house be? It's others. And what's the opposite to Aries? Libra. See, we just start to keep putting it all together, and that's how it becomes seamless, right? It's just the layers. There's so many layers. So obviously the opposite to the third house is the ninth house, which is what sign? Sag, and Sag is long journeys, overseas, foreign, whereas the third house is, Postman Pat, The third house is how you communicate. It's your mind, of course. It's how you learn. It's how you study. It's how you think. It's also those close to you, like your neighbours and your siblings, and it's your early education. So often I can see in the chart, if there's a lot of third house planets, say someone has their sun in their third house, that would be the sibling that shines, okay? Venus could be the beautiful sibling, not in a superficial way, but maybe that person's the artist or something like that. I've got Neptune in my third house, so I'm the spiritual sibling. I'm the sibling who was like, oh, I believe in magic and I believe in this sort of stuff, right? The Pluto in the third house is, the powerful sibling, or the self-righteous sibling, yeah? So you're looking, so it really does show the connection with siblings as well, and the sort of neighbours that you can have as well. It's also that early education, how you went in school. So of course, Neptune in the third house, how do you think I went in school? I dropped out at 16 and had a baby because I wasn't interested. What I was interested in was music. What is Neptune? Music. So I am a singer. So I would sing and get like A triple pluses, and then science would come around and I'm like, up yours, science. I don't like facts. I don't care about facts. Joel pays me out heaps because he's like, you can't just feel something. You've got to like think it. And I'm like, I feel stuff. Like Neptune is in my third house. It means I have a spiritual mind. And it means that what I communicate is very Neptunian, as much as I have my own little relationship with Neptune. But the thing is that so the third house is what you learn, what you speak, what you communicate, what you think. Neptune, spiritual, expansive, connected, the universe, at one, united. My mind is very spiritual. If you've got, say, Saturn, your mind is Saturnian, right? Like my husband has Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter in his third house. Now, how opposite is all of that to Neptune? So opposite, right? Especially having Saturn and Pluto in the third house. Why do you think he likes facts? And he's a Capricorn, whereas I'm like, I feel this, and I just know this. And I don't like fact schmacks. I don't care about that sort of stuff. Like, oh, but they've found proof. How do you know that? Like, I just don't just believe what everyone says. I believe what I feel more than. But if I'm proven wrong, if something happens, I'm like, oh, okay then, and that's my Gemini Mercury. I'm like, oh, that's no worries. Cool. Okay, I'm not so fixed that I can't be malleable. Yeah, but that third house and whatever's in there shows the way you think, shows what you think about, shows what you want to communicate. It's your mental powers. It's your mental activity. It's what you think about and what keeps you mentally interested. Yeah. So I have so many people that, you know, because I've been, you know, doing this sort of work forever, and I can look at one crystal, know exactly what it's called, what it's for. And people are like, how do you remember that? Because this is all I think about. What keeps me mentally interested is stuff to do with Neptune, magic, alchemy, the universe. So you know, it's a rare time that I can't guess a crystal. I've been working with crystals for 20 years. It's a rare time that I don't understand what chakra is being activated. Like I've studied and worked with these things for a long, long time. They are just me. And I remember shit like that because that's my mind. My mind remembers those things because they're important. You know, that's where I get into trouble because I skim over stuff. Like I'll read an article and then Joel goes, but did you read it properly? I'm like, nah. Because I can't be bothered. And it's that whole thing like instructions. I don't want to read instructions. What a waste of my time. Someone tell me how to put it together or someone do it for me. And I'm not a princess, but I'm just like, I just find it a waste of my mental activity. I'm just like, I'd rather be literally reading astrology books. And at the moment I can count, maybe 50 astrology books in front of me. That's what I'm going to do. Like I want to do something that stimulates my mind. So if you've got like my husband, Saturn and Pluto, and he is so good at like understanding like other languages, like people with accents, and I am the worst. Like he's got a Samoan friend, and I still after like 10 years, oh hey, and I'm like, yeah, I can't do it. Whereas Joel just knows it. Like Joel just can hear it because he's got 3 planets in his 3rd house. So he's got a very strong 3rd house. Okay. 3rd house, your attitude to the stuff in your environment, because the 3rd house is still like what's around us because it's our neighbors and it's the way we work in the world, as in like, oh, I go to the shops. How are you when you're talking to someone in the shops? You know, I'm not afraid to, that's why I've never had to do that whole coming out of the spiritual closet. Like it's just always been me. I'm not afraid to go, oh, well, that's because Uranus has just moved into Taurus and you're sort of feeling a little bit like this and all the energies are a bit like, and people might look at me like that, but I'm like, that's how I interact with my everyday environment. Like I don't just keep it for home and where I feel safe because it's who I am, right? So more insight into the Tiani world. Your 3rd house is how you exchange ideas, the way you collect information. So the way you collect information and collect ideas, you know, because what is the 3rd house? Mercury, right? So it's the mind. It's what we think about, it's what we want to learn, what we want to study, how we talk, how we teach. Yes, what you seek to communicate with others and what you think to communicate with others. It's your language style. It's the language that you speak. Yeah. So how duality of it is for me is that here I am, you know, my funny relationship with Neptune, yet like having Neptune in the 3rd house is very psychic because it means that my mind is Neptunian, right? It means that my mind, what is it? Sorry, the what? So the planet is the what? My Neptune is what's being expressed in the 3rd house, and it's my mind. It's my mind powers, yeah. It's the language you speak, and it's the method of your communication as well. So that is why I can bang on or be a little bit like intangible like Neptune. Like I can say something and it's sort of like, oh, what was I saying? Because it's Neptune. It can be elusive, and I know that, right? I know that. Same like if you had Mars in your 3rd house, you know, your communication is probably quite blunt or direct, or you know, if you have Jupiter, you know, you're probably really open to you have a really broad mind, open to ideas, and you know, and you speak from a big, huge scale, not just like direct like Mars. It is your personal radio transmission. That is your 3rd house. You know, you just want to dive into the houses and really understand them, yeah? It is all means of communication pretty much, right? Okay, let's talk about the 4th house because we're going to, this is going to be like a million hours if I don't get moving. Where is my 4th house? I've got another book full of notes because I didn't transfer them all because I would have been epic. The fourth house, the bottom of the chart, the fourth house is ruled by Cancer, water. So it's the first water house, the cardinal house, subconscious, family values, the home, the foundations. It's the bottom of the chart, right? It's the way you feel nurtured, your security, your roots. It's the ancestors. It's the way you grew up. It's your solid base. It's your traditions. It's ruled by the mother, but it can be the father. So there's always the 10th house and the 4th house of what's opposite. So, of course, Cancer is the mother and Capricorn is the father, but it can be different depending on your own circumstances with your parents. You know, for me, my father was my mother because my mother gave me up. So, you know, for me, I really feel, and interestingly enough, I have my moon, which is my mother, in my 10th house, which is ruled by Capricorn. See how that's just like fucking crazy? So there's that real duality for me. And that's exactly what happened for me. You know, my dad was my mum and dad. That's how I seen him. So the 4th house for me really does represent the father, but he was my supreme nurturer, which is the mother, because it's still a Cancerian house. No matter what, it's the house of Cancer, which is the mum, which is the womb. You know, the 4th house is the womb, yeah? It's your childhood, your origin, your heritage, the past, where you feel safe, your early life and your domestic life. So this is the foundation of which you stand. The 4th house links you to the past and connects you to your native land. So, you know, a lot of people that really, you know, are into ancestors and lineage, they usually have a lot of planets in their 4th house, especially Mercury, because that's the mind. So Mercury in the 4th house means that it's someone who might study from home, because the 4th house is home. So Mercury is the planet of study, so they might actually, you know, do online study from home, work from home even, yeah, because home is their base. They feel comfortable at home. And Mercury is the mind. So what is that? That's communication, study, learning, right? But, you know, other people that are really interested, like I've got nothing in my 4th house. And whilst I'm not uninterested in lineage and ancestors and stuff, it's not something that pulls me. Like you know, it's only now that pretty much since I went to a New Zealand reunion and we learnt the whakapapa, which is the actual heritage and everything, the lineage, that I was like, started to get really fascinated, like, oh, this is amazing and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, so, but for me, it's not like this like urge. You know how people go, oh, DNA, I need to know, like if I'm, no, what is it? That ancestry.com, you know, like that ad comes up and I'm just like, and that one, but oh, I just wanted to know what my heritage was. And I'm like, oh. My heritage is the universe. Like, that's how I feel. Like, I don't have that pull to parents. You know, I have nothing in my 4th house, which doesn't mean that I'm not going to, I might not be close to my parents or whatever, but you can see how that plays out, right? It's the darkest house of the chart. It is a hidden house on some level. So it's usually the mask that you wear to yourself. So if there's a lot of planets in the 4th house, it can be that you are hiding yourself from yourself. Yeah. That is a big thing with the 4th house. So the water houses are deep. Okay. And because this is the first water house in Cancer at the bottom of the chart, it is very deep. It is underneath. It's like, because the 8th house is Scorpio, so it's the underworld, isn't it? But this 4th house is the bottom of the chart. It's the midnight part of the chart. Okay, and so you'll have a little diagram for that next week. But it's the midnight part of the chart, so that is the darkest part of the chart. So often some people, and not everyone that I've met with these placements, but some people with lots of placements, especially Sun in the 4th house, they like dark, like they like midnight. It's actually like where they feel like they can be themselves, so they don't feel like the daytime, they're a bit like, oh, it's daytime. They feel comfortable in the dark, yeah? They feel comfortable in the night. It's a very private, sacred space. Like I said, it's the womb. And what is the womb? The womb is dark. Yeah, the womb is dark. This is all the subconscious. Okay. It is an emotional house because it's a Cancer house. But yeah, it's interesting because you will see the correlations with the 4th, 8th, and 12th being the 3 water houses, because they are very deep. So there's similarities. But, you know, having a lot of planets underneath the horizon, which is the 4th house, which is the midnight part of the chart. Again, you'll learn more about that next week, but having a lot of planets there, and especially in that 4th house, I mean, there's a lot that's hidden. Yeah, any planets in the water houses, there's more than meets the eye, because it's water. It's, you know, you never know what's underneath water, right? Yes, this is the house of tradition. Yeah, and so this is where, like I said, you can wear a mask to impress yourself, whereas in the 10th house, you can wear a mask to impress society. Yeah, see the difference? They're the opposite houses, but in the 4th house, it's that you're putting on a mask to pretty much impress yourself. So there's a lot of work with a lot of planets in the 4th house. There just is. That's just the way it is, because there's a lot that's hidden. There's a lot that's very unconscious that hasn't come to the surface, that takes a lot of like diving deep, a lot of honesty, a lot of awareness, a lot of work on the self, and not as in work, but as in showing up, as in participating, as in doing what needs to be done to uncover and rediscover the stuff that's hidden, so you don't wear the mask. It's also how we cherish and care for others, because it's the house of the nurturer. You know, it's where we get inside others. You know, it's deep. It can, you know, it can maneuver inside and hold space. It's how you provide security as a parent, you know, and there's many different things, like, you know, I can see Neptune in the 4th house as, you know, there's something illusionary, like maybe the child has a very elusive idea of the parent, so thinks the parent's all this, but thinks the parent's someone that they're not. Neptune in the 4th house can be parents with alcohol or drug addiction. Same goes for the 12th house, because the 12th house is ruled by Pisces. But what is Neptune? Neptune is the ruler of Pisces. So you're seeing how Neptune in the 4th house could very much be in the home alcoholism. And I have done charts, and it has, you know, it's definitely played out like that for sure. But it's not always going to be like that, okay? It's your psychological roots. It's the foundation on which you stand and build yourself so that you can give to others. Yeah, that is the 4th house. It's also what's been handed down from generation to generation. So I see some people, their mum's mum, and then they all have the same planet in the 4th house. Now, I want to share a really cool thing, is that a friend of mine, I looked at all 3 of her children's charts, and all of them have Jupiter in the 4th house. All 3 of her children, born different years, different times, different ages, all that sort of stuff. And the one thing they had in common was all 3 of them had Jupiter, the planet of love, abundance, in the 4th house of home. So they will always, all 3 of them, it's so magical. All 3 of them will always remember happiness, because what's Jupiter? Happiness. They'll remember abundance. You know, they got everything they wanted. They were abundant in material possessions, but also in security. They always had, you know, like a good solid base foundation, as in home, and secure life. So they were always financially secure. They were always, you know, given what they wanted, whether they were in extracurricular activities and all those sorts of things. So, but what they're going to remember the most, which nearly made me cry when I read it, was just happy. That's what they're going to remember, is a happy childhood. You know, they're not going to go on to think, you know, skeletons coming out of the closet. That's Neptune in the 4th house. There'll be skeletons in closets that maybe only come out when in older time. You know, Uranus in the 4th house. Uranus in the 4th house can be upheaval growing up. So, you know, divorces can be a few things, but Uranus in the 4th house can be upheaval, like an upheaval sort of upbringing. So lots of trauma, maybe moving a lot, so moving houses a lot. Yeah, so of course, you know, there's so much, so much. Planets. So this is the last thing I want to talk about. This is really interesting. So this is a quote that I found. So I didn't say this. I don't think it's a quote. It's just something around the 4th house. So the tree grows from the earth. Okay, so this is the roots and the core. This is the 4th house. And when so it's growing up, right? And it's growing up to what? The 10th house, which is our success point, which we'll talk about soon. The 4th house is the earth. It's the roots, the core. And so it grows up, and when it dies and decays, it nourishes the soil. So we all go back to where we came from. It's the beginning and the end of life. It shows how we have lived life. So not that I'm into death and looking at, some people go, oh, can you see when someone's going to die? It's not really about that. A lot of people think, oh, the 8th house is death. And whilst it represents metaphorical death, because what is it? It's Scorpio. So yes, it does represent metaphorical death, absolutely. But the 4th house is like, it's the home, it's the mother. And yes, the 1st house is the self, it's the physical, it's the way we are in the world. But the 4th house is the deepest part of the chart. Okay, so you can see that it's how you've lived your life. So often people with the sun in their 4th house, yes, whilst they might find it difficult to find out who they are, and again remove that masks to themselves, because it doesn't matter if we mask other people. Like, it will, I mean it's not the way to live, because the universe knows everything anyway, is what I'm saying. But the thing is that it's when you mask yourself, and that sort of, and 4th house stuff is that, right? But the thing is that they can be like, they live a happy life and they die happy. That's sort of, that's old school astrology, and that's sort of what they can say. And I mean, I haven't met someone that has died and told me that, yes, that is it. So I need to meet some like 80 or 90-year-olds with lots of 4th house stuff and see how they're dying. Okay. So yeah, so 8th house isn't just death, right? I love the 4th house. It's very deep. Okay, 5th house, Leo, fire, fixed. Leo and the 5th house is heart. This is the house of heart, your heart. And so this is also the house of ego, very differently than the Aries house, the 1st house, because the 1st house is self. So it can be more ego around the self, whereas, like the 5th house is more the ego identity and the way that you express yourself, your fullest self in the world. Yeah. So some of the keywords that I've given you are creativity, your inner child, interactions with children, because that's what the 5th house is about as well. Self-expression, romance, leisure, recreation, amusement, procreation, sports, play, fun, gambling, and hobbies. So yes, the 5th house is the fun house. That's what I call it. When I meet people with lots of planets in the fun house, it's just that song, that Pink song, welcome to the fun house, and this is the 5th house. The 5th house is the fun house. And it is the house of fun, because it's of leisure, hobbies, sports, activities. I want to drink wine and not do anything. It's about romance. So whilst it's not about sex like the 8th house, it's about flirty sex. Okay, so it's about flirting and romance and things like that. So someone with Neptune in the 5th house would be very dreamy and romantic, and probably have, very unrealistic expectations around romance. Also, the player, I've done a guy's chart with lots of 5th house placements, and he is a player. He admitted that, but he couldn't not be. He had like 4 or 5 planets in his 5th house. Very difficult, because it's very flirty, it's very charismatic. It's just like, I'm sort of, very outward in the way that they express themselves. So for me, I have nothing in my 5th house. And yeah, the 5th house will show that sort of fun and flirtatious nature and how that plays out. So obviously, if your sun's in the 5th house, the sun is at home in the 5th house, because the sun is, its natural ruler is Leo, right? And of course, so you've got to also, look at that. Like, what's at home in what house? So Venus in the 2nd house would be at home. Mars in the 1st house would be at home. Mercury in the 3rd house would be at home. Moon in the 4th house would be at home, yeah? And the sun in the 5th house would be at home. So you've got this, it's very charismatic. It's a big personality. It's a big energy. A lot of 5th house stuff is also people who are actors, because it's a very creative house. Singers, actors, dancers, performers on stage, right? So it's a very extroverted placement. And obviously, if you've got something like Saturn in your 5th house, you actually might feel quite inhibited. You might be a bit too serious and you don't allow that fun side to come out. But again, it's the awareness around that. Then you can begin to master that, yeah? The 5th house is good fortune, it's playtime, it's how you like to enjoy your leisure. It's how you assert your own individuality. It's how you express your own individuality. And that's where I was saying it's different than the first house and ego and self and the first house can be more selfish, self-absorbed or a lot of people with a lot of stuff in their first house, it's said to be, the more planets in the first house, the more self-absorbed you are. And I have seen charts with 4, 5, 6 planets, and they're usually single. Not all the time, most of the time, okay? Because they're so consumed with their own ideas, their own opinions, what they want to do, what they want to think. They're obsessed with that because they've got 5 planets in their their first house, right? So that the ego is more like, it's nearly like an out of control ego is what I would say with the first house, where the fifth house is your identification. It is, I am here in the world to make my mark. I am an individual. I'm an individual. So whatever planet you have in there, so whatever is playing out, whether it's love or your personality or your emotions, you sort of make your mark on that. Like that's something that you're able to stamp, if that makes sense. It's how we make our mark in the world. It's how determined we are to show our own identity, how determined we are to show up in that. It's, when I talk about, the fifth house being hard, it's also, it's the fun stuff too. It's that lovemaking, fun, flirty lovemaking, whereas eighth house is passion, sex, intensity. See the difference between the fifth and the eighth? It's amusement, it's love affairs, it's how you relate to young people. So the fifth house is children as well. So, I've got no planets in my fifth house, yet I've got 3 children. So sometimes people can have like Saturn in their fifth house, and they might, and I literally just was reading something in an astrology group the other day, literally someone talked about, I've got Saturn in my fifth house. Am I never going to have children? Pretty much every single one of them said that they do have children, but after they were 30 or when they were 35 or when they were 38. So interestingly, what is Saturn? Time, restriction, delays, limits. Yeah. So having Saturn in your fifth house might delay you having children, just like Saturn in your seventh house, which we're nearly going to get to, might delay you in getting married, or you are attracted to older people. Okay. So you're looking at the planet, what does it represent and where is it playing out, my people, my friends? So it can also show, how you relate to children and how you get along with children. So of course I have nothing in my fifth house, and I always call myself a very unkid friendly mother. I never thought I'd have children. I wasn't one of those girls, I'm going to get married and have children. And then I've got like the most 3 incredible daughters and my wedding and my marriage. But I was never that girl. I was never that girl like, all of that. It just wasn't me. I didn't even ever cross my mind. When girls are like, I've been dreaming about getting married or I've always wanted children, I'm like, I was not that girl. And then all of a sudden it's all happened and it was perfect. Like my wedding day was fucking magical, and it was one of those perfect wedding days that all the bridezillas want. But I was really relaxed because I actually had a car accident 3 months before. So I was just happy to walk down the aisle and be alive, So it's really fascinating. But the unkid friendly mum stuff is that I don't, I'm not one of those swoony mums like, every kid's amazing. I'm like, no, that kid's like got snot on its face. It's gross. Like, clean the kid's face. I'm not that kid-friendly person. Those women though that are like, every kid, and they're so good. Like being a teacher, hell no. And I'm really honest about it. Like when I've been asked to do reading groups with my daughter's schools, I say no. I said, I'll do craft, I'll do anything. I said, but I struggle listening to my own child read. I'm not listening to 10 other randoms read. Can't do it. Won't do it. Don't do it. Because it's frustrating, man. Like, it's frustrating. Being a teacher, no, I like working with adults, as you can all see, because you're all adults. And that's why I love the teenage years. I have no problem. Like, once those kids hit 12, I'm good. But 7 to 12, I'm like, this is annoying. Like, they're pushing and they're challenging and I'm just like, it's an annoying age. It's annoying. Those whole 5 years are annoying. I'm just telling you right now. That's my thing. But this is what I mean. Like, I've got nothing in my fifth house. I'm not a kid-friendly mum. I'm not like, I don't swoon at everything. I'm just like, no. Babies, beautiful. Like, love babies. But again, like, I can go and like hang around with toddlers and I'm like, thank fuck I'm leaving. Bye now. Have fun with all of that. You've got 3 toddlers under 6. Great. I couldn't do that. I mean, my kids are spread out with 21 years, 3 kids in 21 years, you know. Makes sense, right? I don't have anything in my 5th house. It's not just the way it's going to be for me. And how I get along with children, probably, you know, there's certain kids that I love. Like there's certain kids, and the older they get for me, the better it is. Like I'm really good. If I was ever going to be a school teacher, it'd be like year 12. Like I can deal with that age. I resonate with that age. But any other age, I'm like, yeah, no, it's not great. The 5th house is how we go our own way. So how we do things differently. Because what is it? It's Leo. It's where we stand up. Leo in the 5th house is ruled by what? Getting on stage, performing. It's where we do our thing our own way, our own unique individual way. It's, again, like I said, how we express and assert our individuality and ourselves. And it shows the need we have in the emphasis of the own personality. So it will show wherever that is. So, you know, Neptune there is a very, so my eldest daughter has Neptune and Uranus, I think, in her, Neptune, Uranus in her 5th. And she, you know, and she could be an actress, because what would that be? Neptune is like, it's musical, but it's also like it's ethereal, right? Like it's impressionable, it's change, it's mutable, because what's Neptune? It's mutable, so it's changeable. So you could nearly, you get on stage and you be someone else, and you come off and you're you again, right? Like that is this 5th house energy. It's what you create, because of course the 5th house is also creative, very creative. Again, I've got nothing in my 5th house, can't even draw a stick figure. Like I can write and do all this sort of stuff and make crystal grids and do shit like that, but some people's creativity, I'm just like, how the hell do you do that? Like I'm a barista. I work through in a drive-through. I actually don't work there. I just choose to go in there once a week because it's fun. And I love making coffee for people. But I could never, lucky I'd have to put a lid on. Like I can't do a heart or like flowers and shit. Like I'm just like flat out pouring good milk into that freaking coffee, right? So it's where you create and find joy in sharing that with others. That's the 5th house. Let's move on to the 6th house. 666. And in my very weird way, I don't have my houses in this other book in order. So that's always a joy to be finding. 6th house, Virgo, Earth, mutable. I call the 6th house everyday enlightenment, because the 6th house is the house of the mundane. And it sounds shit and it sounds boring, but it's not, because it's the stuff that needs to be done. It's our everyday life. It's our everyday environment. Like these are the things that need to be done. So the 6th house is our everyday. And to me, it is about enlightenment, being enlightened with the 6th house, because the 6th house is Virgo. And what is Virgo? Service, here to help, right? So some of the things are, and the 6th house is also, so it's pretty much health, work, and small pets. I'm pretty sure 11th house is large pets, or maybe 9th. I actually don't know that, but I know that the 6th house is small pets. So some people with a lot of stuff in their 6th house can be vets, or have a lot of pets. But you've got here work, health ethics, service. So it's your occupation and your job. The 10th house is your career. The 6th house is I go to work, I pay the bills. It's your occupation. It's your job, your everyday job. And for some people that is their career, but not for everyone. Pets, the mundane, is your diet regime. It's your routine, which I think is your ritual. It's your craftsmanship. So what you do with your hands and what you make out of your life. The way you craft your everyday world, your service to others, how you listen to and care for your body. So it's also how you utilize things. It also has to do with food as well, because it's health. So it's your reactions. So some people who have certain placements in their 6 can have like a lot of health issues, like it's their karma. I met a guy flew up from Melbourne to have a session with me, and he was writing a book, and I'd never met him before, and I did his chart. And he had, look, he didn't have he had the nodes and Chiron and stuff going on in his 6th house. And I said, you know, it's through a health issue and you actually overcoming that, which is your destiny here, that you will go on to serve and help other people. And that's why he just couldn't get over, like, he just couldn't understand that how I could know that, because I don't know him. But I'm like, well, it's in your chart. And he's just like, but that's exactly what happened to me. And then he shared that he was told he'd never walk again, and all this sort of stuff happened with his back, and he was very like fit and at the gym and all this sort of stuff. And he's gone on to write a book, and you know, it is about that sort of stuff. And that's the thing, like, his destiny is to have a health issue, which he overcomes. So you can see, again, I have nothing in my 6th house. So you can see where some people have health issues. You know, look at footballers, for example. Some of those guys will play their whole lives and not have one injury. Yet a gun football player can have a million injuries, constantly injured, constantly out. You know, I say look to the 6th house. You know, they've probably got lots of other things going on, but that 6th house shows, you know, I don't have any health issues. Like, my health, my blood pressure, my everything. I'm in perfect health. Like, everything's like, oh, you're a 23-year-old. And I'm not. I'm a 37-year-old, but I'm very healthy, and I've always been very healthy. Whereas the sun, so my husband has his sun in his 6th house. Now, the sun in the 6th house is karma around your health, and it actually means in a past life you didn't take care of your health, so in this life you have to. So he's got a condition that's called fatty liver, and it has not a thing to do with, he hardly drinks. And he wasn't one of those like 19-year-olds that would drink. Like, we know 40-year-olds who still drink like they're 22. Like, we just go, oh my God, and there's nothing wrong with them, but they've got nothing in. I mean, of course, they're not going to be feeling good and feeling healthy and all those sorts of things. I mean, you can't deny that. Just because you don't have anything in your 6th house doesn't mean you just eat friggin' Maccas every day and drink. But the thing is that planets in the 6th house, the 7th house, and the 12th house have a karmic tone to them. So the 6th house is karma around your health. So the sun in the 6th house denotes that you didn't pay attention to your physical body in the last life. So you've come here to pay attention to it. So yeah, he has to be very mindful of what he eats, and he has to do all of those things because he has this condition. Also, the sun in the 6th house can mean that you nearly sacrifice, and this sounds weird, but it's not sacrifice who you are and what you want just to work and provide and to be of service, but in a way a little bit, because the 6th house is work. So I would never want, you know, I say don't sacrifice who you are for anything, but some people have to go and earn a living going to a 9-to-5 office job. So, and the sun in the 6th house can denote that those people are those sorts of people to do that, right? Because the sun is yourself and the 6th house is work. So you've then got to find that sweet spot within that to have acceptance around that and love. Like, wherever you go, there you are. You know, people think that by changing jobs or, you know, this whole industry of, which is really, really interesting, is that, you know, as soon as someone sits one circle or they get one doTERRA oil or they, you know, start working with crystals or something, they just think they need to go and teach that. And it's like, not necessarily. And that's the biggest thing. Like, not everyone's here to teach everything that they do. Not everyone's passion becomes their becomes their work. You know, Jamie Oliver's not the most amazing chef in the world, but it's who he is. That's why it's become his career. But there's a million other chefs that are just as great as he is, working day in and day out at restaurants, providing epic, awesome shit, no cookbooks, but friggin' rad ass, and they do that until they're 60. Yeah? But there's no, this level of success is this weird concept that just because I read one book about self-development, now I need to go and help people. Or just because I like oracle cards, I need to read for people. It's like, not actually. That's not, like, I say it all the time, everyone wants to be Oprah. And it's not everyone's journey here to do that. It is not everyone's journey to read for people, do the crystals and do the circles and do all this sort of stuff. Like, it's not their journey. And the 6th house will show you that sort of stuff too, because the 6th house is the mundane work. It's the work that needs to be done. And that's why I talk about everyday enlightenment and magic in the mundane, which, between me and you watching this, that is the title of my next course. So I am actually going to run an online course talking about integrating magic into the mundane, because people have this idea that, oh, I'm just going to work in the spiritual and that's just going to be everything. But I've been saying this for years, is what if your passion never paid your bills? Are you okay with that? And, you know, a lot of people aren't, because they have this weird idea that their passion has to pay their bills. But what I see is that those passions becoming their problems because they're not paying their bills, because it's not everyone's journey and destiny here to earn money doing that. Can that be a part of your service here and something that you enjoy and love and actually are passionate about? Of course, but the biggest thing is everyone now thinks passion must pay bills. I'll never work again because I'm working my passion. But I've seen so many people ruin so much of their lives, and by quitting jobs to, hold circles and be a reader, and then to go back a year old bankrupt, or, putting their families in financial stress because they think that this is their path. But it's like, no, they just got caught up on this weird success bandwagon that just because you started working with oils, now you need to tell everyone about oils and let everyone know. That's the biggest thing. So there is this weird, so sun in the sixth house. When I read this somewhere in one of the million books, where it said you nearly sacrifice what you want, or like even something higher, to be of service for the mundane, to be a cog in the wheel, but a joyful cog. Yeah, that's what I say. Is like, take joy everywhere with you. So the sixth house can get a little bit of a bad rap, but the sixth house is I think the sixth house is a great house of service. Here I've written it's your techniques of your own self-improvement. It's what you integrate so that you can serve others. So it's a very, it's Virgo, it's meticulous, it's critical, it's learning, it's helpful. So it's what you're integrating then to help other people within your world. It's your attention to detail, yeah? Of course, if there's lots of planets there, those people can be workaholics, a slave to work. It could also be how you put things to use. And like I said, it's your craftsmanship house. Like, how skilled are you at that craftsmanship? Like, what are you crafting? It gives you a critical eye. What am I here to do? Can be shown in your sixth house. It's those small daily acts of service that are your sixth house. And yeah, like I said, it can be the reactions and assimilations of food as well. Seventh, relationships, my friends, relationships. And it's not just marriage. It does represent marriage, but it represents all relationships that you have with your business partners, with everyone that you're relating to, which is every single day. The 11th house, though, is friendships, but the 7th house shows relationships. Now, if the first house is self, the 7th house is others. So the 7th house is actually projections. So what you project comes back to you. The 7th house is the true mirror. It is the mirror placement to you, yeah? And so I'm wondering, I'll talk about that maybe next week, about my Aries stuff with the 7th house. I'll talk about that next week because it'll make more sense, because I'm talking about the descendant, which is the beginning of the 7th house. And I will let you know, because, and then it's crazy. It's crazy. But so the 7th house is what's reflecting back to you. So it is Libra, of course, air, cardinal. It is relationships of all kinds. Like I just said, it's group awareness, it's cooperation, it's business partnerships, it's marriage, open enemies, own projections. It's what comes back to you. That's the biggest thing it is it's what comes back to you. It is your spouse. It's what sort of spouse you will attract into your life. So it's what you're attracting. It's the people that you're attracting into your life, which is the projection stuff. So for some people, they project heavily onto other people, so they actually get a lot of that stuff in their life, right? But it's also what we attract naturally because it's in our chart, right? So for me, it can show you what sort of partner that you have, or husband or wife, yeah? Because I have Mars in Taurus. Now, Mars is ruled by Aries, right? So funnily enough, my husband has Moon in Aries. So it shows me what sort of man I'll have, someone who can quite be like an Aries, which, that's what I'll talk about next week, is the whole Aries situation in my life. But that was my projection, right, about Aries. So the thing is that, which is my descendant, which we'll talk about next week. But the thing is that Mars is ruled by Aries, okay? So Mars rules Aries. So I've got Mars in my 7th house, which means that I can attract very Aryan people. I can attract, my Mars is in Taurus, but the seventh house is ruled by Libra, which is the opposite of Aries. But the thing is that Mars is the planet of Aries, right? So that's the sort of person I will attract. And just like my husband, he's got Venus in his seventh house in Aquarius. So again, he's attracted a quirky, interesting, eccentric woman. But it's also what you seek in others. So whatever planet's there. So again, like I said earlier, if Saturn is in that seventh house, what you're seeking in a partner or a relationship or a marriage or a spouse is someone who's mature, who's wise, who's older, who's grounded. You know, for someone to have Saturn in their seventh house, there's a few different things that can happen. Some of them marry early, but marry for money or marry for security. So don't marry for love, because we've got to remember Saturn is cold, but it is also about success, right? And it's, you know, about moving to the top. So that can be one option with Saturn there. But Saturn can also be in the seventh house, marrying later, a delayed marriage. Yeah. Uranus in the seventh house can show that you value a very different. So you know how some people have open marriages and things like that, which I would never do, but they have all that, you know, that polygamy and all that sort of stuff. Uranus could be very well in their seventh house because they actually value something. Because remember, Uranus is different, right? It's unique. So they value something different to what society is. They value something different to what other people would value as like a relationship core. Yeah, their ideas and views on relationships will be different because it's sort of also your ideas and your views on relationships as well. So Mars in my seventh house shows that relationships are important. They're a passion of mine. I'm driven to create good friendships, create good relationships. I put a lot of energy because wherever Mars is where you're putting energy. So Mars is in my relationship house. That's where I put a lot of energy. And it's true. Relationships and rapport and connection and heart connection and knowing that my heart and your heart are old friends, that for me is very, very important. So it makes sense, right? You know, Jupiter or Venus, the two benefics. So, you know, often if you've got one of the benefics there, Jupiter or Venus in the seventh, you know, you've been lucky in love or lucky in marriage, or, you know, you've met an abundant partner, you know, a partner who is abundant, maybe financially abundant too, especially with Venus or Jupiter there. So, you know, it's definitely what you are seeking out, what you're attracting and what you're meeting. Yeah, the seventh house. Let me see, where are yes, it's what you want to harmonize in yourself, which externalizes through other relationships. It shows how we prepare for confrontation. So again, if there's something there, you know, I've had to work on my Mars in the seventh house, haven't I? Well, what's Mars? War. You know, Mars is aggression, right? And it shows how we prepare for confrontation. So, of course, you know, I could be defensive or I could be combative. Yeah, see the difference between the first house Mars is just that's their natural, like they can come across like that. Whereas the seventh house, I'm preparing to be that if I'm like maybe triggered or someone has a go at me. You know, that's taken years to master because I do not like fucking rarely get triggered, maybe once a year or something. My God, it's just nothing triggers me anymore. Very rarely. And I don't, you know, and the preparing for confrontation. You know, again, like understanding my Mars in my seventh house was a big, big deal for me. Like I had to do a lot of work with my Mars in my seventh house because I would like gun ho, like be aggressive in my friendships because I was just like, you know, I love you and I want to catch up with you and la, la, la. And, you know, people would be like, oh, yeah, well, I'm doing this. And I'm like, oh, no, you don't like me. And, you know, I was fucking crazy, to be honest, back in the day. But so I've done a lot of work with my Mars in the seventh house. So, you know, so whatever is in your seventh house, that's where you can prepare for what's to come with other people. So someone reacts and how do you react? Yeah. Of course, once we get to the seventh house, and we'll talk more about the top and the bottom parts of the house, but all of a sudden we're separate from the self now, and we start interacting with others. So from the first to the sixth house is the bottom part of the chart, and the seventh to the 12th is the top. So we go from self to others as well, just so you know. So yes, it can show your life partner. It shows what comes back to you. Like I said, it's how we restore our harmony and how we express ourselves with others. You know, it's full how we relate to others. That's the biggest thing. It's just that is how we relate to other people. Also, when it talks about projections and stuff, the thing is that the seventh house can also show your suppressed emotions. Okay, it can reveal your own enemy within you and your own unacknowledged personality traits. So what you deny in yourself and what you suppress in yourself will often be, because what's the seventh house? The mirror will often be reflected in other people. So if you're not owning all of that stuff, you will be met with your suppressed, unacknowledged personality traits in every second person you meet. Yeah. So it's when we can acknowledge everything about ourselves, and that's where I talk about astrology is the key. Like, astrology is everything. You accept every nook and cranny of who you are because you know it. All of a sudden, you're not in that game anymore. You're not suppressing and you're not projecting. And do I think that it's possible? Fucking damn straight it's possible. We can cure cancer with our minds, man. Of course we can stop being a projective person, because I'm not into the belief that every person is our mirror and that what we don't like in someone else we don't like in ourselves. I don't believe that that's true on every case, because we don't like the guys that, you know, that blow people up. We don't like people who do horrible things to children. Does that mean that we're suppressing things? No. That's why I fucking hate the analogy of everyone's your mirror. Fuck off. No, they're not. That person's just an actual asshole. And it doesn't mean that I can't be an asshole sometimes. That person just really is an asshole all the time, mean, blah, 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 blah. I'm not suppressing those parts of myself. But when it comes to knowing what's in your seventh house and understanding your seventh house, and this is where I will really chat heavily about this with my own stuff, with Aries and stuff for me. This is where you acknowledge that. So where I had been suppressing parts of myself in my own chart, it would show up in my seventh house and in the way that I would interact with people or the way that I would meet people. So of course I'm going to meet quite Martian people. I've got Mars in my seventh house, right? And that for me was difficult because I'm not a naturally confrontational person. I'm not a selfish person. I'm not an all about me person. And the people that I kept meeting were like that. So what I had to learn about myself is to be okay with that, to be okay with sometimes I have to be selfish, or sometimes I have to stand up and be confrontational, you know. That is what I had to do, and that is what I had to work on. So that is the biggest thing with the seventh house is it is a projection, and it is unacknowledged personality traits. But as soon as you start opening that can and diving into all of those things, it honestly doesn't become a problem anymore. Trust me, I've lived through it, and I will share more of that next week. Okay, let's talk about the eighth house. 888, where are you in my book here? Oh my goodness, where is it? That's the 7th. 15th, oh, there it is. Oh, I forgot to put a thing there. 8th, the next water house, Scorpio, water, fixed. So this house is about secrets, death, the occult, the hidden, what is underneath, inheritance, other people's resources and other people's money, because the second house is the opposite. So it's what's mine, my own personal resources, me, my own. The eighth house opposite, others, what other people can bring to my life, where I need to share, right? Taurus is about me, Scorpio is about others, sharing, not like an Aries Libra with resources, right? So it can be inheritances, taxes. Some astrologers rarely talk about the spiritual side of the eighth house, whereas that's all I talk about, because the eighth house is deep. It's mysterious. It's Pluto. It's Scorpio, right? It's the underworld. It's you getting to the bottom of things. It's you wanting to go deep, dive deep. And of course, I've got Mercury in my eighth house, so that's why I don't talk superficial stuff. I can't do it. I have to talk deep because it's just natural for me, yeah? It's magic. It's the magic house. It's your psychic abilities. It's the way you transform, your transformation and rebirth processes. It's power. It's mysterious. It's also repressions. It's truth, and it's penetration. So this is the house of self-development. So for someone with the sun the sun is who you are. So wherever your sun is, that house is very important for you just saying, okay? And I would have shared that anyway, but the sun is who you are. So whatever house your sun is a very important house. Like that is who you are and what you're here to do in this lifetime. So I have my sun in my 8th house. So what do? I teach magic and psychic and mysteries, and I transform and I grow and I rebirth, and I'm interested in the occult. I'm interested in what's underneath everything. I'm fascinated with what's below the surface. Yeah. So that is powerful. So that is where I express myself. I express myself was what is our sun sign? The way we express ourselves. So I express myself through what you could nearly say is a Scorpio lens, because the 8th house is ruled by Scorpio. Yeah. So I express myself with all the dark mysteries of life. Yeah. It's your inner treasures, your 8th house. It's what's inner, those inner treasures, and having the courage to find them. It's what's haunting. It's the haunting side. It's what's repressed. It's what you transform and heal within yourself, for then you can go and transform and heal others. Makes sense, right? My sun is here. I have, it's the transforming and the healing that I have done within myself, by myself too, because I have Chiron on my sun there, which is the shaman, the medicine man. And I've done that work myself, and then my joy is to, again, share that with other people. Yeah. Sex obviously is a key word. Like I said, the 8th and the 2nd house. The 2nd house is I have, but the 8th house is we. So it is about cooperation. It is about banks and institutions, where you would borrow money from. So some people can have, a lot of luck with banks. They always get what they need. They win things, someone winning stuff. So the 5th house is like gambling. So you could be lucky with gambling, but then the 8th house shows other people's money. So, the 8th house and the 2nd house, but the 8th house too is good with other people's money. So someone could be a banker with their sun in their 8th house. But the thing is that I've known a few people with lots of stuff in the 8th house, because the 8th house is very good for business. Yeah, like owning a business, having your own business. And of course, I've got four guys in my 8th house. So that is what the 8th house is about too. Business, being a business owner, good with money, good with other people's money, good at helping people figure out their money, which is why being a financial advisor or something could be good. And there's that side of things. So there's that real side of things that's more about the money and the assets and stuff like that. But then there's this other real deep side to the 8th house. And I've known a lady who was like, oh, my husband doesn't even believe in any of this yet. He's got 5 planets in the 8th house. And I'm like, he'll wake up one day, because you can't just not. The 8th house is so potent and so deep that you wouldn't be able to go along your whole life with lots of stuff going on in your 8th house and not eventually go deep. You just wouldn't. That's impossible. This guy was only in his early 20s or something. So I was like, just wait for it, darling. He'll come around. He'll come around. The 8th house is penetrating power. It's the truth. It wants the truth, and it will do what it needs to do. A lot of whistleblowers probably have shit in the 8th house. Look, sometimes I feel like I'm a spiritual whistleblower, because everyone's all caught up in all this fucking shit that's not even true, and I'm just like, hey, you can be unbelievably connected to the universe and all these sorts of things and still have a glass of wine, still have mind-blowing sex, there's this facade and this spiritual delusion around the entertainment industry of the spiritual people, and I'm like, I go into Mind Body Spirit Festival and debunk all of that stuff, yeah, because it's like this glass tower that doesn't exist, and we're human, right? It's a very investigative house. It's deep. It wants to get to the bottom of things. It's also your partner's money. So for me, I've got my sun so sun represents father, but it can also represent husband, right? So yeah, my husband has worked full time ever since we've been together. So that means that it's the partner's money, that I have other resources coming in, which I do, right? Like I said, very good with money, very good with business. The 8th house is your inner nature, secrets, what lies hidden, what's inside, different to the 4th house. The 4th house is the mask that you wear to yourself to maybe hide your truth from you, whereas the 8th house is different. The 8th house wants to know who the self is. So they want all the masks to come off. But then there's an element of privacy, I find, with the 8th house too. You know, I don't need to air dirty laundry. I don't have a lot, but I don't need to air what if something does come up. You know, and sort of label it as vulnerable and, you know, get on this authenticity bandwagon that everyone thinks is just the right thing to do now. Like, it's just weird to me. Like, you're authentic because you're who you are. Like, it's not a fucking program you can take, right? And getting online and airing your dirty laundry and just being a loose cannon is just destructive as fuck, man. But so many people in this industry just think that that's being raw and vulnerable and real. And it's like, yeah, well, it's mentally unstable is what it is. It's fucking mentally unstable. Anyway, let's not go down that path because that's a whole different workshop. Yeah, but the 8th house isn't hiding things from themselves because they don't want to hide things from themselves. They're fucking ripping everything wide open. It is death, baby. It is Scorpio. 8th house stuff isn't doing the, okay, I can't face this. 8th house is I can face everything. And I will go to the depth of the ocean to find that. I will die many times over in this lifetime to do that. Yeah, I feel like, and I've said it a million times, I have graveyards of my old selves. You know, I'm constantly like pouring the masks back. It's like my drive, yeah, because it's my son's in my 8th house. So it's a drive for me to transform myself. I don't need to hide that. You can see how that's different, yeah. It's also what's concealed is here, you know, so what's hidden, like hidden talents, hidden potentials, hidden gifts are shown in the 8th house, and you then accessing those hidden gifts and hidden talents. It's like an underground cellar in a different way than the 4th house. And yeah, and like I said, it's what you are transforming in yourself so that you can transform others. Let's talk about the 9th house. So the 9th, I always say it's different to the 8th, very different, because what is it? It's Sagittarius, it's mutable, it's fire. It's not a Scorpio, watery, you know, Plutonian world. It's Jupiter. You know, the 9th house is Jupiter. The 9th house is higher learning. The 9th house is God. The 9th house is religion and dogma. And the 9th house is like wanting to expand the mind, wanting to grow spiritually. But I think that there's something really similar about, because the 8th house wants the truth, right? And then the 9th house does too. The 9th house is you going on your own spiritual quest. And I see that with the 8th house as well, but it's more of a deeper, darker, mysterious sort of way of doing it. Whereas the 9th house, it's like I'm going to a temple. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to do yoga. I'm going to travel to a foreign land and to immerse myself in the culture to transform myself. Yeah, see the difference? So 9th house, philosophy, knowledge, travel, freedom, higher learning, higher education, publishing, the in-laws, which can show you the relationship with the in-laws, media, foreign lands, spirituality, beliefs, justice, and your quest for God. So here is the visionary. Here is self-improvement by expanding, whereas, you know, self-improvement in the 8th house is by transforming, like you are diving deep to become that phoenix, whereas in the 9th it's by expanding, being open to all different ideas. And that's why it's a very religious house, and it can be very dogmatic, right? Because, you know, a lot of people with a lot of stuff in their 9th house, it can be like leaders, like Dalai Lamas and people who lead some sort of religious tribe, right? Because they've got their beliefs and they share them with everyone, and they, you know, they hold strong. They know that they're their own guru, but there can also be this sort of dogma around that as well, and this rigidity around, well, my way is the right way. You know, cults, 9th house, cults, it's the darker side, yeah. The 9th house is your relationship to God as well, your relationship to your guru, you, yourself. And that's what I love about the 9th house. It's you, it's your perception, it's your universal connection in a different way to the 12th house, because the 12th house is actually fucking the universe, you, everything. We're all one, and we're nothing, and we're everything. But the 9th house is more from an inquisitive place, okay? The 9th house is the metaphysical. It's studying, it's publishing, it's media. You know, if you've got, you know, depending on what's going on in the 9th house, you know, you can write books. You know, people with a lot of stuff in their 9th house have written many books, or they're in the media, yeah? Publishing companies, yeah? It's your religious views. It's also your beliefs. It's your belief systems, what you believe, how you believe, you know. So obviously if you have Jupiter there, it's at home. It's got expanded beliefs. But if you've got, you know, Pluto there, you can be very, you can transform the way that you are, but your beliefs could be, you know, even dark. Maybe that's very cult-like, yeah, having Pluto in there. Not mean you will be in a cult, but I'd love to see the chart of like Scientology, yeah, you know, like what beliefs are in the ninth house there, like what's going on there. You know, Venus is in the ninth house. You know, you've got a love of foreign culture and beauty, and you have you know, like a connection to certain art and certain beauty and you know, just those, you know, people that are really like, because I don't have anything in my ninth house, and so people that are really like fascinated by like, oh, the Mona Lisa. I'm like, oh, like I'm going to Paris and I'll see it, and I'll be like, oh, yeah, okay, that's great. Like, you know, I don't have that connection because I don't have anything there, so it's not like a big thing for me. Yeah, so it's about gathering. So it's the opposite to the third house. So it's also about gathering knowledge and discovering truths. You know, it is all about finding your own inner guru. The ninth house is your own spiritual quest. Yeah. And whatever is in there is showing the planet that's there, right? Like how that's happening, what's happening there with that planet. It's also what expands in yourself for you to teach, because the ninth house is the teacher. The third house is too. It's teaching, it's learning, it's studying, but then the ninth house also is as well. It's becoming conscious. It's how you express your beliefs and views. You know, if you have Mars in your ninth house, you might express them quite combative, you know, or you might fight for your beliefs. Might be something, you know, people that go and rally and things like that, they've probably got like Mars in their ninth house, you know, because I'm not like that. I don't have that within me, like people who fight for a cause. Do I care for the causes? Of course I do, but I'm not someone who would go and spend a day picketing or trying to convince people that, you know, this way is the right way and don't do this, you know, all the anti-vaccination people and people who vaccinate and people who don't vaccinate, and just how aggressive and angry they always are. I just find it I'm just like, I'm tapped out of that shit, man. I've got my own beliefs, but I don't need to share them with everyone and tell everyone else they're wrong for what they're doing. You know, that's a very ninth house thing. People with lots in their ninth house, they have beliefs and they are willing to do whatever the fuck they can to tell everyone, right? So, and especially how are you expressing them? That's being shown in the planet, how you express them, and of course the sign as well. The ninth house is also where the world reacts to the style that we share, okay? Because so again, like if you've got this combative way, then people will react like that to you, yeah? So the world reacts to that style you share. So it might not necessarily be the actual message that you're trying to get across, but the way you're getting it across. So that's very important too, because the ninth house is belief systems, okay? And also, because the ninth house is also about foreign land, foreign travel. Look, these people are visionaries, right? This is, you know, this is broad. The ninth house is very broad, and it is foreign land, it's culture. You know, I can see in my daughter's chart that she'll probably travel. She's got 4 planets in her ninth house, and she is very strong in her opinions for an 8-year-old, and puts you in your place, and you're like, oh my God, how are you only 8? But okay then. But it's expanding the mind, because the ninth house wants you to learn things and take things in and understand things from a different perspective. See, it's different than the 8th because it's at a deeper level, but the ninth is that expansive level. And ultimately, just because you've got lots of planets there, and this might be true for my youngest daughter too, it might not necessarily mean that you travel a lot on a plane or you go overseas a lot to these places, but it also can mean in your inner world. So sometimes when stuff, you know, when that ninth house is activated, it's not so much that, oh, you know, for some people it might be travel, like they jet set, they're maybe a flight attendant, you know, or a pilot. So they've got all that stuff going on there, but it actually might be someone who's like a real astral traveler or a visionary, or someone who teaches meditation but is very good at meditating, quantum physics, you know, it's all about the mind, but while still being in the body. Yeah. Yeah, it's expansion through the mind of personal horizons. So it does not necessarily have to be that you're getting on a plane all the time. Yeah, the ninth house is great. All the houses are great, let's be honest. Okay, 10th house. What have we got? What have we got for time here? I can't see. Okay, 3 houses to go. It's a big lesson because it's very important. 10th house, last earth house, Capricorn, cardinal. Goals, ambitions, responsibility, authority, reputation, success, career, social status, the father, your highest potential, the prestige, the public eye. So this is your career. This is what you do for a living. This is where this can be that mask that you wear to impress society. This is where you see success. Yeah. This is where you are heading. So the 10th house is the topmost part of your chart, the highest part, and the 4th house is the lowest part. So you've got the midnight and the midday. Yeah. So this is where you're out. This is where you're seen. Everyone sees you. So it's different to the first house because yes, that's how you are seen, and that is what that's the foot you're putting forward. But this is all about status and reputation and wanting to be how you are in the public. So of course, a lot of planets in the 10th house can be someone that is in the public. For example, I have my moon in my 10th house. Moon in my 10th house means I will probably work in the public eye, and I do. And I do it from a moony way because my moon, it's nurturing, it's feminine, it's, I love holding space for women and men. But, I feel like the supreme matriarch. I don't, I know some people who have Pluto in their 10th house. And whilst they are in the public, again, you see me, I've got Pluto in my first house. So that is me. But in the 10th house, they want the power over the people. Whereas I don't. I know a few people with the Pluto in their 10th. I say that wherever Pluto is where you want power. So for me, I've got Pluto in my first house. I want power over myself. I have no desire to control people, to tell people what to do. Even in teaching all of this, I'm doing this, and people may take it or leave it. Like, I'm not doing this for power. But Pluto in the 10th house of status and career, they want power over people. They have power plays at work. They are constantly in power struggles, whether they're the dominant ones or whether they're the submissive ones. Yeah. So you see the difference there. The first house and the 10th house, they're visible, right? The first house is you. It's your physical appearance. It's the way you interact with the world. But the 10th house is you at your highest point, your success. It's actually where you are culminating everything and where you want to achieve. Yeah. So to have planets in the 10th house, of course, I've been mentoring a lady for a few years who has 5 planets in her 10th house. As soon as I met her, I said, you'll be a millionaire. Not just because of that, but just because I could see her chart. She is so fucking driven. And since mentoring her, she has developed her own product, which is now sold in like 22 shops. She's got 5 or 6 people working for her, a production line. She's amazing. Like, she's an entrepreneur of friggin' times a million. And to see all those planets in the 10th house, it means you've got a drive to succeed. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if you don't have planets in the 10th house. It doesn't mean you still can't have a successful career. But the thing is that this is the 10th house is like the pinnacle house. It is where you are going. It is where you are heading. It is where you earn your status and reputation. It is your personal position in the world. It is also how we are an authority in our own lives and how we handle authority as well. Yeah. It's what you personally and professionally achieve so that you can assist others. It's how you want to be supported and reassured, and what we expect in tangible results in the real world, because it's our success. It's what's Capricorn? It's material. It's earth. The Taurus has started laying the foundations. The Aries is the beginning. The Taurus builds. And we get all the way around to that last earth sign. What are we looking at in Capricorn and in the 10th house? We're looking at our fucking temple. We're looking at what we have built with our own 2 hands, with all of the houses, with all of the planets, with all of the signs. We're looking at it now. This is our success. Yeah. It is the recognition that we get. So the 10th house shows you in the public eye, shows your reputation, and shows, it can show, ultimately we're talking transits next module, but, certain people in the public eye, when they've got certain planets transiting, like moving through that 10th house, that's when they come to their demise. I think that, one of the presidents, when something was going through his 10th house, he was like called out, or everything came crumbling down for him, because what's happening, it's in the public. So you've got this element of status, and how you're seen. And yeah, if you've got an illuminary and what's your illuminary, your sun or your moon? So what we do, we want to look to where our illuminaries are. We want to look to where all of our planets are, but the sun is who you are. But if you've got the sun or the moon in the 10th house, you know, career is important to you. And the sun there is, that's your drive. You know, these people are very successful in their career with the sun in the 10th house. Moon in the 10th house too. So moon in the 10th house can denote fame. And interestingly enough, me and 2 of my 3 daughters, we all have moon in our 10th house. So it's very, very fascinating, right? And I'm not saying fame, just like friggin' like famous for money or anything like that, but just you're in the public eye. You know, for me, my eldest daughter, she's got her moon in her 10th, and my middle daughter does. And they could definitely be famous. Like, I think that my eldest daughter should be an actress. Indy really wants to be an actress too. She could be a model. I mean, if that's her path, I don't know. But the thing is that we can just harness that and work with that as she's getting older. But yeah, moon in the 10th house. And my middle daughter has not only her moon in her 10th house, but Jupiter, the great benefic. You know, you have Jupiter in your 10th house, the world is your fucking oyster. You know, and it's not to say that other planets that aren't good there, but it's just, you know, Jupiter is a benefic. You know, it means she will make her mark on the world. Yeah, she so will. The 10th house is awesome. The 10th house is amazing. I love the 10th house. That is our success. That is what we are. That is our goal. Yeah. Okay, let's look to the 11th. Let's see if we can do this in 10 minutes. I'll give you a 2-hour one. 11th house, last air sign. It's Aquarius. It's fixed. This house represents friendships, groups of like mind, visions, politics, your ideals, your wishes and your hopes, your dreams, you know, what you want, but on like a wishy, ideally hopeful way, different to that 10th house of success and achieve, right? The 11th house is kinship, tribes, aspirations, communities, organizations, and humanity. Yeah. So if you've got a lot of stuff in there, I see so many people with lots of stuff in their 11th house, and what they do is they work with big groups. They bring communities together. They're also the ones out there picketing, you know, like, come on, like ralliers, you know, 11th house and 9th house. They're the ralliers. They're the ones that are going out. They want to change the world, especially 11th house people, right? They want to change the world. That is what they want to do. It's like, we want to hold space, bring everyone up, make the world a better place. Yeah. Oh, I've actually already written that and I didn't even realize that. Yeah, it's about tribes and bringing people together, uniting everyone. So everyone is equal. That's what the 11th house is about. It's about everyone being equal. That's what they love. They want everyone to have a go. You know, people with a lot of stuff in the 11th house can often be a part of like many different groups and societies. They've got that friendship group, that friendship group, that friendship group, because that one's the one they do the craft. That one's the one they drink the wine with the ladies. This is the one over here that they do the spiritual stuff. You know, I don't have anything in my 11th house, you know. So the thing is that that's all about the groups, right? It's about the groups and the communities, yeah. People with stellium, people with a lot, we're going to talk about stelliums next week, oopsie daisies. People with lots of planets here can be rigid and arrogant as well, think they know everything, yeah? Again, what is it? It's a fixed house. So, of course, you know, we know that Aquarius is the mind. So it's fixed ideas, fixed ideals, fixed opinions. That's why it can be like that, okay? The 11th house is your relationship with the outside world based on your personality. It is the type of friends you attract and also what you expect from them, okay? So because it's the house of friendships, so I've seen this many times, like the duality, because we're a paradox and we're a contradiction, and we have to see that. And sometimes the chart depicts that very, very well. So to have 2 opposing planets in the same house. So Uranus in the 11th house and Saturn in the 11th house, so to speak, yeah? Or let's say Saturn and Neptune in the 11th house. Saturn would show, you know, very run-of-the-mill, like straight down the line, conservative friends. But then Neptune's like, it's the artists, it's the visionaries, it's the musicians. So they've got one lot of friends. So someone can have Neptune and Saturn in their 11th house. One lot of their friends is really conservative. Like, they work hard, they make their money, they're like grounded, they're like you know, everything. I pay my bills, I do my dues. I am Saturn, I am Capricorn. But then they've got Neptune in their 11th house too. So then they've got this other friggin' group of friends that are just like artists, musicians. They get drunk with that group of friends. You know, maybe they do drugs with that group of friends because that's Neptune. You know, having Mars in your 11th house, you have to watch your sorts of friendships because there can be conflict around friendships. Venus in the 11th house is beautiful because, you know, it's happy there. It's Venusian. So, you know, you love being with your friends. You know, friendship groups are important to you. Obviously, Jupiter would be lots of friends. Yeah, so different friendship groups can happen as well. It is also friends assisting you to attain your dreams. So if you've got lots of stuff going on in your 11th house, you know, the friends can then be of benefit to you because the 11th house is your friendships and how you work with other people, how you work with groups, cooperating, collaborating. Yeah, that's all. It's all about group mentality, but it's also about your dreams, you know, your visions, your higher dreams. Like, what do I want? You know, it's the dream a bigger dream sort of house, right? Because it's about your ideals, your hopes and your wishes, and in a different way to any of the other houses because this is the 11th house, master number 11, right? It's okay, what do I want to, you know, what do I vision and see for the world? Yeah. It's your identity in the greater whole. It shows how you make friends and keep friends, and it also shows how you work in groups. So obviously, if you have Pluto in your 11th house, you might be a real leader, like a very strong leader, but you also might struggle with power within the groups, in the group dynamic, right? Because what is it? It's how you work in groups. So again, if you have Venus there, you might work really harmoniously in groups and you need that. You need your group environment to be harmonious. Whereas if you've got Mars there, again, it might be combative. Like that's how you work in groups. You're quite blunt or, you know, quite combative. Yeah. It's also your common spiritual affinity with your friends. It's what you envision as truth, how you share your vision with the world at large. That is the 11th house. It's how you do that. So obviously someone with Mercury in the 11th house could be a speaker. You know, they share their vision by, you know, holding space for people and wanting to bring the world together, bring the community together. It's very much community as well, yeah. Last but not least, the 12th house. Again, a lovely, lovely house. Again, this is also like a womb as well. It's the womb, it's the physical womb. So the fourth house is like the womb of the mother, as in like the nurturing part. And then the 12th house is like the womb before you enter the world, because the 12th house comes before the first house, right? And we enter the world from our ascendant into the first house. Yeah, so it's the actual literal womb of, you know, what's going on in pregnancy. Yeah. So some of the keywords for the 12th are your inner, so yes, so it's Pisces, it's the last water house and it's mutable. So it's your inner worlds, it's your dreams, it's your isolation, it's oneness, it's unity, the 12th house. It's your self-undoing, it's spirituality in a different way than the 12th house, the 9th house, yeah? So the 9th house is that quest. This isn't the quest. This is just, I am everything and I am nothing. I am spiritual. I am a being. You know, it's that whole I am consciousness, you know, I am consciousness walking. It's self-sacrifice. Of course, it's Pisces. We've got to remember martyr victim. It's hidden enemies. It's the hidden. It's obscure. It's the paranormal. It's transcendence. It's institutions, hospitals, prisons, asylums. It's the unconscious and it's behind the scenes. So some people can have a lot of planets there. They work very well behind the scenes. They might not want to come out into the public. Now, the funny thing is that I have the paradox here. I have 2 planets in my 12th house, and then I have my moon in my 10th house. So the 10th house is public. So whilst I love doing that and I know that it's my purpose and what I'm here to do, my 12th house placements are like, oh, but just now you just need time away. You need to seclude yourself. Yeah, because that's the thing. I like to work behind the scenes, and it's something that I do. Like I'm a very prepared person. I prepare things from behind the scenes. Can I off the cuff like answer questions and do something? Of course I can. And I will, because I would trust myself and I have the knowledge and skills and all of those things. But I like to be prepared. And I think in one of the books, I think it said it's either Jupiter or Saturn, one of the, because they're the 2 planets I have in my 12th. Jupiter or Saturn, but one of them it says, you know, it's best for you to have notes and to do work before you go into like presenting or doing. And it's just so me. Like I've always been like that. Yeah, the 12th house is the universal, the collective. It's everything. It's the collective consciousness, but it's also the unconscious as well, and making the unconscious conscious, and dealing with that, because the 12th house can also be that escapist house. And I know a lot of people, I've seen some clients have a lot of planets in their 12th house and they do drugs. And I do not recommend, if you have, say, Neptune in your 6th house, look, anything in your 6th and 12th house, we're looking at mental health and physical health. Okay. Not great to be doing drugs, especially psychedelics and marijuana and stuff like that, because it really, really affects your auric field. I mean, we're looking at the physical body, what it does, like Neptune in the 6th house, for like, whoa, do not do drugs. It is just like a no-no, because your aura is so fine, and you're so super sensitive, so psychic sponge, that messing with your energetics and your energy system, it's not great to do drugs. I mean, look, I don't do drugs. I did when I was younger. I used to smoke marijuana when I was a teenager, but I didn't need it. I wasn't addicted to it or anything. But the thing is that drugs, having that addiction, the 6th and the 12th house, you're looking, the 12th house can be mental as well, like mental illness. And, I can have a look sometimes in someone's 12th house and see if, they're, if their mother was in institutions. I mean, look, it's hospitals, institutions, prisons and asylums. So you can see if maybe, the son, for example. So my eldest daughter has her son in her 12th house. The son represents the father. What does the 12th house represent? The hidden, the unconscious. Her father was hidden from her. He was also a drug addict. But the thing is that it was hidden. She hasn't seen her father in 13 years. So her father was absent from her life. So you can see that. And most sun in the 12th placements, whether the father was absent due to work, so he was still at home, but due to work, he was that, because I know fathers are mostly the providers, but, my children would never say they had an absent father, because they don't. Like, Joel is active. He actively participates. He goes to every parade that they're on. He doesn't miss things, like he is a very involved dad. So, and none of them have their son in their 12th house, whereas my eldest daughter has her son in her 12th house and her father is not around. Yeah, see how it's just fucking amazing? It's also hidden treasures. It's also about making the conscious unconscious. It's about jails, and it's self-destruction, and like your Achilles heel. It's where you can be your own worst enemy. Yeah. It's also secret and hidden enemies, where the 7th house is open enemies, the 12th house is hidden enemies. Isn't that amazing? Also, it is the house of karma, because it is the last house, the final house. So whenever there's a planet in the 12th house, there's karma around whatever that planet represents. So I'm just going to read out the planets so that you know. So obviously the sun, the karma around, and the matrix. It's all the matrix and karma stuff. So sun in the 12th is obviously father. Moon in the 12th is obviously mother. And it doesn't mean that if you've got moon in the 12th, that you have a horrible relationship with your mother. Even sun in the 12th doesn't mean that, but there's something deeper going on. And the moon in the 12th, I've seen a couple of different things that happen, 2 different things. One can be, that the mother was maybe sick or mentally ill, or always unwell in hospitals and stuff like that, or absent. Again, absent, like not a great connection. Or I've known some women with the moon, and they're very telepathic with their mum, because of course the 12th house is very psychic and very telepathic and very otherworldly. We're looking at Pisces here, guys. It's the last sign of the zodiac. It's the last final house. So the moon there can actually represent a very, very spiritual connection with the mum as well. But there's still the element of karma, because that's the 12th house. So the moon is the mother, Mercury is karma around the mind, Venus is love. People with Venus can have hidden love affairs sometimes, or fall for people who are taken or in marriages so that they can't actually be with that person. Karma with Mars is aggression. Chiron is wounding, so unconscious of their own wounds. So if you've got Chiron, which is the key, which of course we're not talking about in this session, in this module, but we will share in more detail in mod 2. But Chiron there is it's a very, very difficult placement. I mean, I say that, I'm just being real. It's difficult because it's the most hidden house. And if your wound is there, guess what that is? Your wound is very, very hidden. It takes you, you know, it takes you a lot of deep diving to get to that wound and to uncover it because it's hidden. Yeah. But once you do uncover it, you're very good at helping other people uncover their wounds too. The karma with Uranus there is revolution or upheaval. Neptune is illusions and deceptions. Pluto is power. Jupiter is the old priest or the old priestess energy or excess, too much. And Saturn is a heavy karmic load because Saturn is the planet of karma. And to have him in the 12th house, which I have, is heavy karma. And I've completed all of my karma in this lifetime. And that happened when I had my car accident. And yeah, it comes full cycle. I know this because of all the work I've done. I won't go into it because that's like a 20-minute story. But yeah, Saturn has hidden, you know, is private and has hidden stuff here because it's a heavy karmic load. But I love the 12th house and I don't have any fear of it. I'm involved in 12th house stuff and people are, you know, they fear the 12th house because it's the subconscious and the hidden and they, you know, cry, poor me, victim the whole time. Hello, Pisces. But the thing is it's not. To be honest, the 4th, 8th and 12th houses I find to be quite evolved and quite spiritual because they're, you know, especially the 8th and the 12th. The 4th is still below the, it's below the board, like the underneath, the self, because the stuff below, and we'll talk about that next week, the 9th house too. But the thing is that the 12th house is uber spiritual, like it's uber deep, yeah? Actually don't know where I was going with that. Anywho, oh yeah, that people cry and they're scared and like they'd say that, you know, poor me and all these bad things happen. I love my 12th house placements, man. Like it gives me a direct line to the universe. I love having stuff in the 12th house. Yes, it's the womb of the horoscope, like I said. The 8th house is personal and the 12th house is universal, yeah? That's where the difference lies with that. The 12th house is also like paranormal dreams as well, like the paranormal happening. It can be, of course, like I said, addiction, the collective unconscious, so tapping into the collective unconscious. It's the complete integration of life. It's the very end. It's the 12th house. It's the end. This is the end. And then we move to Aries again in the 1st house. It's worldly. It's where worldly stuff is renounced. Yeah, we're giving up that attachment to things and we're just going, you know, we're open. We're in the ocean. The 12th house is the deepest part of the ocean. Like you're just laying on top of the ocean, floating. You just give up everything and surrender. That's what it is. It's surrender. Again, hidden treasures. So have a look. We've got, you know, the 8th house hidden treasures and the 12th house hidden treasures. It can conceal your strengths and weaknesses, but again, you've got to dive there. You've got to go there. The 12th house, I always say, can be like an attic or a room in your own house. If you imagine your house with 12 rooms in it, the 12th house might be the one that people don't want to go into. They don't turn the light on because it's dark in there and it's scary. And often with people with Pluto in the 12th house, there's a lot of fear. Yeah, there's a lot of fears. There's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of those, you know, paranoia. Yeah, a lot of paranoia. And, you know, and I help people go, you know, if we turn the light on in that room, it might all still be there, but it's not as scary. Yeah. The 12th house is where you withdraw from external life and where it's sort of like living in a monastery. That's why I have that complex of out in the world, out in the public. Now I need to not speak for 3 days. You know, it's just how it works for me. It's what I believe and feel about the life and the universe so that you can inspire others. So it's whatever planet's there, it's what you believe about life. It's what you believe about the universe, and then that's how you inspire other people. The house of self-sacrifice. I've got lots of notes on that, so I'm just reading them out. Planets in the 12th are the sensory undercurrents of life that can loosen a person's grip on contemporary life, leaving them ahead of the norm. So it's quite an evolved house, the 12th house. They can go beyond society's norm. Yeah, they 12th house placements are tapped into something that isn't available to other people. So you're feeling that real conduit, you know, you become that conduit, very, very connected to other worlds, other lives. Yeah. Yeah, we must make the unconscious conscious if you've got stuff in the 12th house, because if you don't, you will feel trapped, like you are in the prison, which the 12th house represents prisons. Yeah. The 12th house can show what you are like when you are by yourself, what we keep to ourselves, and what we attract that helps us confront ourselves as well. The 12th house planets show experiences that don't belong to us either. So they could be problems or difficulties that the parents had around the earth. So again, what is it? The physical womb. So you can carry, and that's why it's also the house of karma. So you can carry your parents' karma with you into this life. Because ultimately it's where your parents made a mark on you, that 12th house stuff. Yeah. And yeah, so the 12th house shows how we reacted to our parents on an unconscious level when we were young. Yeah, as well. So there is that element of parents as well. I think that's all my notes. Yes. And breathe. The 12th house is, yeah, it's deep in a very vast spiritual way. It's connected to everything. Yeah. Okay, we've done 2 hours and 10 minutes. That was a doozy, my friends. I hope that you loved it, and I hope you have so much fun diving in now and looking at the planets in the houses. Do not worry about the signs. We're looking at the natural chart and the planets within the houses, and you can start to play with that. Yeah? And I will see you next week for week 6. I can't wait. I'm sad that it's coming to an end, but this has just been my heart exploding. It's like my heart all poured onto paper and poured into videos for you guys to go and soar with. So thank you very much for week 5 and you being here. I love you all, and I will see you soon. Enjoy diving into the houses. Like, have so much fun. Really feel the houses and embody them and see how everything lines up. Yeah, with the natural chart. Okay.